forms for really anything that you're going to collect information. And Jeff, I should ask with you, is that okay with you?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay. So forms are going to be used in the system for anything that you would want to collect information on the members from. So example would be the membership application. So if somebody wants to register as a new member, they would fill out the membership application, and we would create that using our forms. Event registrations would be examples if somebody wanted to register for an event. If Roth Williams has donations, we could do that with donations. If, what else am I thinking? I'm going to go close my door. Basically anything that you would want to use to collect information on the member. You can also use forms to create invoices. So if somebody has to pay for an upcoming registration or have to pay to come to an event, we can create a payment field through the forms as well. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Awesome. So forms are really easy to find in the site. The only place we can access them is if you go to the Forms tab, and up at the top, it's like the third tab.
Oh, is it this one?
And yep, and then Form List. Okay. So you can go ahead and click on that. So this is the only place we're going to access our forms. Now, we've created a couple, I think, of forms in here, but not a whole lot. So every form ever created in the system will be found in this area. So over time, this is going to have a lot of forms inside of it. If you hover over the membership application, you'll notice there are a couple of options that pop up to the right. There are the 3 horizontal dots that are stacked next to each other. If you click on that, it gives you the options to either copy or delete this form. We can delete any of the forms that we have right now, but the second a form has a submission tied to it, because we can use forms to collect information on your members, the second that there's a form submission, we can no longer delete the form. The reason why is because if we could delete the form, that means we would be deleting all the information that we collected with the form. And that would not be good because you're mass deleting information, right? So we just don't allow you to delete a form once a form submission has been made on it.
Okay.
With that being said, that means you're going to have a ton of forms over time. So we have the search bar up in the top left, top right-hand corner. If you see that search bar in this window, you can search form names using that. And then you can also, if you see for the membership application, do you see the drop down that says published?
Yes, right here.
If you click on that, you can click on the drop down. There are 3 options. It can be published, meaning that your members have access to it. Unpublished, meaning they can't access it. And then we can archive it. So let's say that you guys had a December luncheon for 2017. You really aren't going to, once January comes, you're really not going to need that form anymore, so you can just archive it. And if you ever determine that you do need it, maybe you want to copy it for next year's luncheon that you're having or something, you can always check that box at the very top of this area that says Show Archived Forms, and that'll re-show you all of those forms that you've archived.
I like that. Okay.
So it'll help keep it kind of clean. And then just another tip, if you have a lot of forms and you don't necessarily need to archive any, but you just have a lot in here, these are always going to be listed alphabetically. So yes, you could search them, but a lot of my associations will put Z's in front of the forms that they need on this page, but they don't need to see very often, and that'll drop them to the bottom of the list that you're viewing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So if you hover back over, or if you click back on those 3 horizontal dots, the other option, yeah, perfect. The other option is to copy forms. This is going to be your best friend. Anytime you need to create a new form, what I would recommend doing is creating templates for your forms first. So have an event template, a luncheon template, whatever kind of events that you guys might be having commonly or most often. And then what you'll do is just copy those forms. So every time you have a new event, you'll want to create a new form because it's going to track how many people registered for that particular event. So if you guys have a big conference, you guys have a big conference, you don't want people to register through the 2017 conference form for 2018. You would want to create an entirely new form so that you can kind of compare, okay, 57 people or 357 people came last year, 425 people came this year. Wow, that's a huge difference. You also have the ability to export form submissions. So you can either have people sign in at the door, but you could also print off like an Excel file of the people that registered, and then they could sign in on that paper version as they come in. And so obviously if you exported all the form submissions and used the same form as you did for 2017, that's not going to be an accurate depiction of who actually registered, because it's just a big mess of people. So that's why we really want to make sure we're using a new form for every event that takes place.
Okay. And I have a question. What kind of forms are we able to have? Like, what are the different kind of forms?
So technically, the body of the form will be made up of it could be made up of three different bodies or sections. A membership application section. So of course that would be used for membership.
Yeah.
An event registration section. So that would be used for any type of event registrations. But then we also have a general section that you could use, and that would be for any other type of form that you could imagine. Surveys, donations, sponsorships, partnerships, contact us is a typical form, form builder is a typical form. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Because yesterday Jeff and I were talking, and he wanted to see if there was a donation form that you wanted to start. And then also book order form. Yeah. So those are the two, and that's for RWISO.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's this one.
Yeah. Okay. So those two would be
awesome. So we'll create the donation form together today.
Great.
Yeah. So basically any form that you can think of, we can create. Just a couple more things I want to point out on this page. So if you hover off of that copy and you take a look, there's also an edit option. You can just like click somewhere else on that row.
Should I click to here? Edit?
That's fine. So you can edit the form. That takes you into the form builder, which you just did. So we're actually going to be coming into the form builder in just a second and learning more about this. Do you see the arrow in the top right-hand corner that says form list?
Yes.
So you can go back to the form list by using that arrow, which is where we want to go back to right now. Awesome. So if you hover back over just that membership application row, so edit takes you into the form builder so you can make edits to the form. And then the last item is, do you see that take this form? What this is useful for is somebody may call you and say, Sadina, I want to become a member, but I just can't, I don't have time to take the application online. So you would say, take this form, and you could actually take the form for them. And you could say, okay, no problem, let me get your information. And you could literally just ask them questions as they pop up on the form and fill it in for them. You can register people through that as well. You can even collect payment at the end. Yeah, exactly. And you can choose their name from this. If it's somebody that is already a member, you could choose their name from this list. You can even search. So this is going to be your entire database. Or you could proceed as a new profile, and that's going to create a new profile for them.
Okay. So if someone wanted to make edits, this is the same way to do it. I would just click on their existing profile, correct?
If somebody wanted to make edits to their profile, you would actually just search their name just as you searched your name a moment ago and made edits to your profile. Exactly. This would only be if you wanted to take a form for them. And the only reason you would need to take a form would be if you wanted to, if they were a new member or if they were registering for something, if they wanted to donate. If you just needed to make edits to their profile, you would just search their name using the search bar you used on the top right-hand corner. Start typing in their name and actually go into their profile.
Okay. And then what's the prevent confirmation email? Little checkbox?
Yeah, so great question. If somebody, let's say that you guys have some paper membership applications floating around. and somebody takes a paper membership application and they send it to you, and you and Jeff have had a crazy week, and you don't get a chance to put in their membership application for a week, you can just prevent them from getting a confirmation email so they don't call you and say, why am I just now getting this confirmation email? I turned in my application over a week ago. Just a silly example, if that makes sense though.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, so you can cancel out of this. There's a cancel button in the bottom of this little box. Okay, great. So if you want to create a new form, any questions before I keep going?
No.
Okay. So let's use that create a form button in the top left-hand corner. We're going to create a form together.
Okay, form name.
So yeah, the first thing we would do is put in our form name. Now this is internal, so it's really just helping you understand what the form's being used for. We're going to create a donation form, so you could call it donation.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. Now the next item that we would need to fill out. So I mentioned that the bodies of the form can be either a membership application, an event registration form, or a general form. So we have 3 different bodies of our forms that we can use. The rest of the form by default will always have a login section, a summary section, a payment section, and a confirmation section. So in every form, no matter what kind of form you make, you'll have a login section, summary section, payment section, confirmation section. We're going to look at those in a moment.
Okay.
And then the actual body of the form could be either that membership application section, event registration section, or general section. Basically, right now, we're making a donation form. That's not for membership or for event registration. So we would not check either of these setup options. If it was for membership or if it was for event, you could just check that box and the system will automatically bring in that section for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're not making either.
Okay,
So you can just hit, so you don't check either one, and you would just hit save.
Okay.
Now we are inside the form builder. The form builder is comprised of a left-hand column and a right-hand column. The right-hand column is like a roughed draft of your form. So it's what the form's going to look like on the front end. It's just not quite pretty yet. So let's go ahead and talk through some of the sections that we see here on the left-hand corner. The first section is the login section. So I mentioned every form you create is going to have a login section to it.
Right.
So go ahead and click on do you see the properties button specifically for the login section?
Yes, right here.
You can click on that. Awesome. So I mentioned when we first created this form that when you typed in donation as the form name, that was internal. It was really just to help you know what this form was used for. What your members will see is whatever name is on each tab as you navigate between sections. So do you see the little tab in the top left-hand corner of that login section? It says login.
This one right here, yes. Where my cursor is over?
Yeah. It might be moving a little slow. Well, the actual tab is actually in
it's some second.
It's moving. It moves a little slow. Yeah.
Yeah.
The actual tab is on the right-hand column. Do you see the section in the right-hand column? And it says login. Yeah, that's the actual tab. So that's where the name is pulling from. Now you were right. In the left-hand side, where it says name login, that is what is being read on that login tab. So if you wanted this to not say login, you might want to specify and say login to create donation amount or login to add donation. You could just type that in that name field.
Right here?
And so you can go ahead and, yeah, you can go ahead and just start typing. Exactly. Just type in something silly. We can erase it.
All right.
And then if you click your mouse somewhere over on perfect. Do you see how now it's added to that tab?
Mhm.
Log in to add donation. So that's where it's communicating to. So that tab is what your members will see when they come into the form.
Okay.
And as they navigate from section to section, whatever's on each section's tab as we continue to work through the different sections will be what they read.
Okay.
So you can go ahead, if you wanted to just say log in, you can delete to add donation if you want to.
There you go.
Okay. So now some other things that I want to show you. That toggle right underneath that name that says enable login section.
Mhm.
So you can turn off the login section. But if you do that, the form submission will come through as anonymous.
Mhm.
That's probably 10 times out of 10, you're going to want to keep the login section on. The only reason you would want to turn it off is like if you had a contact us form. So somebody could take a form where they'd put in their name, their email, and a comment or question. You don't really need them to log in to do that, because if they log in and they're not already a member, it's going to create a prospect profile for them, which you might want, but sometimes you may not want that necessarily. So you can turn off the login section. But everything else you want the login section on for. The reason why is because if they are logged in, that's how it registers or reads the information that they filled out in the form and saves it in their profile. That's how the form can auto-populate information from the member's profile, so that if you've already collected the information on them, they don't have to fill it out again. This is how you can search on who's completed what forms or who has not completed specific forms. So the login section, generally, you're going to want to have that turned on.
Okay.
The next item that you see, it says login type, and there's a drop down. That's just allowing you to determine what type of users are able to take the form. If only existing users can take the form, that means they already would have to have a username and password. If somebody new could take the form, then you would allow maybe just new users, and that means that only people who don't already have a profile could take the form. In this case, for a donation, we would want to say all users. Anybody could take this form. Anybody can give you money.
Okay. And then multiple submissions.
Yep, and then multiple submissions just means that if you want to allow somebody to donate, in this case, could they donate every single day? Heck yeah, they could. So you could turn on multiple submissions. For an event registration, I would recommend leaving that turned off, because you don't want somebody to go, did I register for that? I don't remember. I'm going to come back in here and just do it again. And now you've got 2 registrations, 2 invoices. You're having to credit them money. It's a real pain in the butt. So this is a rare exception where you would want to go ahead and allow multiple submissions. All right. Any questions on the login section?
No. Should we go over to add form elements?
Actually, yeah. So, well, do me a favor. If you continue to hover over the right-hand side, you'll notice that we've got a login section, and then go ahead and scroll down on the right-hand side. You'll notice there's the login section. Okay. Summary section. I mentioned by default there will always be a summary section. Do you see that summary section? It's kind of grayed out.
I do. I see it right here.
Click properties for that. And you'll always want to make sure you've turned this on. Now, we don't have any fields in our form yet for them to summarize at the end of the form, but as we create fields to the form, as we add them, we will want to make sure we edit the summary fields. Yeah, you can click that. And then right now we don't have anything we can add, but there will be items that we'll check to, yes, we want to add these to the summary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you would...
Okay, so you can, yeah, we'll come back to it when there's fields, so it makes a little bit more sense. All right, then we have the payment section. You can go ahead and hit properties for the payment section. If the form is collecting money, you'll always want to make sure the payment section is set up. Now, for a donation, it will collect money. So you would want to make sure that you've got the payment processor selected.
Moolah, right? Moolah?
Moolah, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the invoice template. Now, we didn't talk about invoice templates yesterday. Go ahead and, there are not any, so we'll have to talk about that in a little bit. So basically, when an invoice is created in the system can send out emails to the individual whom the invoice was created for to say either like, hey, make sure you pay this open invoice. Hey, don't forget to pay this open invoice. Hey, your invoice is past due. You really need to pay it. Or it could just be a payment confirmation. So if they have to pay at time of filling out this form, that means that they just need a payment confirmation notification, and that will come from the invoice template. If that just confused the heck out of you, it's okay. We'll come back to it.
Okay, good.
Okay, it's okay. All right, cool. The next two toggles, enable pay later with invoice. So in a donation form, I would say typically the person has to pay when they submit the donation form. So I wouldn't say, yeah, I'll give you guys $500, but I'm going to come back and pay it in a couple months. That's silly. You really want them to make sure they can pay it at time, or make sure that they pay it at time of saying that they're going to pay it. For a donation, that's typical. Jeff may want it differently, but that's typical from what I've seen. So that enable pay with invoice, you would keep that off because we're not going to let them pay later. They're going to pay now. Now, if there's an event, and I think,
Yeah, sorry, you can continue. I think you're going to answer my next question with what you were about to say with the event.
Yeah, I think that you guys are mostly going to probably make people pay at the same time. But if you have an event and they can come back and pay later, so they can register for the event and they don't necessarily have to pay until the event comes, then you can turn that toggle on. That'll create an open invoice for them in the system that they can come back and pay later.
Jeff,
The last,
do you usually have
go ahead.
Do immediately when registering? Yeah, it's usually, okay. Sorry, Adrian, you can continue.
No, you're totally fine. That's a great question to ask, and I thought that was most typical. The other toggle, so in invoice templates, which we'll come back to and talk through in a little bit, we have to tell the system. Uh-oh, are you still there? Sadina?
Oh, Adrian?
Hey, are you back?
It looks like the call.
Uh-oh, are you still there?
Yeah, we're there.
Okay, hey, I figured. Okay, awesome. So we were just talking about the last toggle on this area that says override invoice templates due date. And I said, we'll come back and talk about invoice templates later. But one thing that I wanted to mention with this is in an invoice template, you would tell it, okay, I want this invoice to be due 30 days from the day it was created. 30 days is typical. You can pick like 15, 30, 60, 90. You may not want the invoice to be due until the date of the event. So if they don't have to pay right then, if they could pay later, right after they've registered, you may want to tell the system, well, the event's not until 9 months from now. Maybe it's your huge conference. So they don't really have to pay this invoice until 9 months from now. So you could always say override invoice templates due date and pick whatever random due date you want to pick. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So this is the payment section. The last section that we have is the confirmation section. That's over here on the right-hand side. So when your member takes the form, they're going to see this confirmation page, and it says, thank you, your form has been submitted successfully. Now, you may want to pretty this up a little bit and say something a little bit more specific. So if you click on that field that says, thank you, your form has been submitted successfully, go ahead and click on it. Uh-oh, are you moving?
Did I?
I don't see you, I just see Jeff now.
Oh.
Oh, really?
Huh.
You might need to just sign back in.
Oh no.
Oh, wait a minute.
Go here. Let me go back in. For some reason, the page just. Okay. Waiting to.
What are you seeing right now, Adrian?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. I see you back. You came back. Make presenter. You should get the pop-up on your screen.
There it is. Okay. Do you see it?
There we go.
We good?
Yep, perfect.
All right.
Okay. It looks
So
like
you clicked on that. Uh-oh.
Okay, so I clicked on thank you. So is this the right? I clicked on the submitted successfully little.
Perfect. So actually click on that box again, not the properties this time. Just click on that box that says thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. So do you see the button that says edit the confirmation page? This will allow you to edit the confirmation page. So what they see when they've submitted the submitted the form. So you can edit this in here.
Like the standard. Okay.
Just our standard editor, like what we looked through yesterday when we did the content training. So you can cancel out of this. Yeah, you can add images, internal links. Now, if you click the properties for this confirmation section.
I'm sorry, what does the enable this element? So if I turn it off, this wouldn't even appear?
Exactly.
Okay, so I'll go to properties now, and then here's properties.
So this allows you to set up a confirmation email. So not only would they see the confirmation page, but they would also be emailed automatically a confirmation email. So you would just turn this on by using the toggle, and then you would edit the confirmation email. So you can click on that.
So it would
now, this is really helpful for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you place your cursor below where it says this form has been submitted successfully, you can use the merge data tool. Yeah, so you can just like enter down. And then you can use the merge data tool, and you can merge in different fields like their first name, last name, anything. Now we don't have any fields on the form yet, so this is a little weird. But when you have fields on the form, you'll be able to choose the fields from the form to populate on the confirmation email. Now, this is cool for your member because it acts almost as like a receipt. But if you cancel out of this, yeah, you can click on that, and then you would just hit insert this field or merge.
So you can
merge individual
only, merge one of the.
At a time.
Okay, at a time. Okay, so it would be first. And then, can I just click merge individual name?
Yeah, go ahead and do a couple.
Okay, so, and then, so you want the last name. Okay, so you just keep going.
But remember, it's going to take the place of where you're merging those in at. So you'd probably want to give it a little bit more organization, like stack them on top of each other. You see why I said enter down below that sentence? Because right now they would all be crammed right next to each other, no spaces or anything. And then you'd want to put a space between the first name field and the last name field, which would be right between those two squigglies.
Or between those two, like that?
Yep.
Is that right? Okay. So
yes, that's perfect.
Okay,
yeah. Awesome. So you can hit, so something really cool about this is not only will this act as the receipt for your member, but do you see at the top of this little pop-up it says additional BCC recipient?
Yes.
If you click on that, you can add yourself, you can add Jeff, you can add up to 10 blind copied individuals. And the reason this is really cool This is going to save your life because instead of having to come into MemberClicks every day and say, okay, did somebody register for something? Did we get a new member? Did somebody make a donation? Instead of having to look around for that information in MemberClicks, if you BCC yourself, you'll get a notification in your email.
Okay.
Which will be wildly helpful. Because you'll go, oh, Jeff, we've got a new member. And he's going to be like, Sadina, how did you know that? And you're going to be like, because I'm awesome, and we should send them a welcome email. So, yeah. And then you can just send them another little personalized, you know, if you guys come up with a template to send your new members, it's always a good touch.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could just do that. And so you can cancel. So I would recommend setting up the confirmation section, payment section, and summary section for every form. So if they're maybe like the membership application, I would maybe go back and add that in. So while we were doing this, you'll notice we've been under on the left-hand side, the third tab that says element properties. Do you see that?
Yes.
So anytime we've clicked on a section, anytime we've clicked on a field, it's always showing us element properties. So what that means is element properties is what we can do specifically, to what we can do to a specific field or a specific section. So whenever we're under element properties, we're only affecting one part of the form.
Okay.
If you use the first tab that says form settings, do you see that first tab that says form settings?
Yeah. A minute.
If you click on that, these items affect the entire form. So anything you do under form settings affects the whole form. Element properties affects one particular element of the form.
Okay.
Okay? So let's go ahead and look at these different things under form settings. Before I keep moving forward, do you have any questions or how are you feeling?
No, I think I'm doing good.
Okay, cool. Is it helpful that you're driving? Are you still feeling like it's good?
Yeah.
Cool. Good, good. All right, so form settings. First thing is the form name. We created that when we created the form.
Yep, I remember.
So that's, yep. So if you needed to update the form name, you can always do that here. The form description, you can add a form description in, but this is also internal. So nobody would see the form description except for you and Jeff.
Okay.
Form alias. Do you remember what the form alias was used for? We talked about it in the content training.
I don't know.
That's totally okay. So form alias is what helps create the URL. So yesterday, if we created like the members only page, we would go to row.memberclicks.net/members-only, and it would take us to that particular page. In this case, it would take us to this particular form. So the alias is donation. If we wanted to come to this form, we would go to row.memberclicks.net/donation.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but why would we need to be doing that? Like, what's the purpose?
The reason it's, so remember how when you were going to your administrative site and you typed in, I told you to type in at the top, row.memberclicks.net/administrator?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. It's just instead of going to the admin login, it would be going to.
Right there.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
Very few times will you do that, honestly, because normally you're going to be creating internal links and you'll be using the site links button below the editors to add those internal links. So you'll really rarely need that. But when you're testing your forms, to me, the easiest way to test forms is to use an incognito window. I'll teach you how to do that if you don't know how to already.
Yeah, no.
And you'll type in the URL. The reason you want to test your forms through an incognito window is because that's masking you as an admin. If the system recognizes you as an admin, you're either going to not be able to see anything because it's going to go, why the heck are you taking a membership application? You're an administrator. Or it's going to show you too much because you have permission to see more than what members or non-members can see. So you use an incognito window so the system doesn't recognize you. and then you would just put in the link of whatever item it is that you're wanting to test. So if we wanted to test this form to make sure you're happy with how it looks, which we will do on our call today, then you would go to row.memberclicks.net/donation. It'll bring you directly to this form. You'll sign in as if you're a non-member, like you'll just make up a username and a password and basically create a prospect account, and then I'll take you through the process of making a donation. So that's just how you'll test the form.
All right. So you can change if you wanted to, but there wouldn't be a reason to change that, to make it different.
Yeah, you could change it if you wanted to. And so if you have a huge event, the alias is always going to be by default basically whatever name it is that you gave the form with dashes in between. So sometimes what may happen is you may have 2018 December annual sponsorship conference. Awesome. It's fun. Can't wait to have you. I mean, that's a silly example, but like you may name it that. And then that means your alias is going to be 2018 December and it's going to be forever long. And so you may go, let's just shorten that. And you can just delete all the alias and you might just type in 2018 conference.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So that's where it could be useful. Okay, awesome. The form status, let's go ahead and publish our form.
Okay.
Nobody has access to it unless we link on the front end, so that's why it's fine if we go ahead and publish it.
Okay, and then enable form expiration date?
The donation form will never have an expiration date, but for an event that would be useful. Like if there's a deadline for them to be able to register for the event by. Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right, so we talked a little bit yesterday about the difference between member types and groups and how groups control permissions. So that edit group permissions, the next item where it says permissions, if you click on that, you'll see all the groups, which look basically the same as the member types. Mm-hmm. But remember, they are two different things because we added board. This controls who gets to see this form, this entire form. So if you, for whatever reason, didn't want prospects to be able to donate, you would just uncheck them and they wouldn't be able to see this. Now, anybody can donate, so it's fine to leave these permissions as is, but just showing you can control who can see this form. You'll also be able to control who can see each element you add to the form based on these groups.
Okay. I'll just keep it like that.
Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Now the next two items, date-based pricing and discount codes. Date-based pricing will allow you to add early bird pricing or late fees. So if somebody registers if you have a conference, let's say December 1st of 2018, you could put a start date, okay, well, January 1st to February 28th, whoever registers, and whoever registers will pay $200, but after February 28th, March 1st, whoever registers pays $300. We can set that up in the system. We can't really do that without there being pricing on the form. And this is kind of hard to explain unless we actually had a real life example. So more so, just remember that the form can do this. And if you ever need to use it, you can just call me or call the help team and we can help walk you through it.
Okay. So I inputted like dates hypothetically, so start date, end date. So where would you put the actual pricing there? Add the rule? Is that what you would do?
I'll show you that in just a second. We can't quite do it yet, but I'll show it to you.
Okay. Can I just leave this like that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And you can have multiple date-based pricing. So you could have an early bird and a late fee. You could have 3 different types of early birds if you wanted to do them month by month. The second option was discount codes. Discount codes would be like if you have an event and sponsors are going to register through the same event registration, but they don't have to pay anything because they're a sponsor. You can give them a discount code, which you would create. It could be like sponsor, all caps. And if they type in sponsor, so you would put in what you would want them to add as a discount code. and they would put that in at the end of the form right before checkout, and that would give it would put the discount onto their total. So that's kind of hard, again, to see, but I'll show you. We might be able to come back to it, so it'll make more sense.
Okay.
And you can have multiple discount codes as well.
Okay.
All right, last, the forward URL. So what this means is by default, when your member submits a form, by default, they're taken back to the homepage of your website. If you want to change where they go, you would just put the link that you want them to be directed to in that forward URL slot. So maybe it's somebody who's registered for membership in the membership application. You might want them to go to a page more about membership benefits they're gaining. So you would just put that link in here.
Okay.
But you don't have to put anything in here. Like I said, by default, they go back to the homepage of your website.
Okay. And then just going back to the date-based pricing and discount codes, the disable is, when would you disable it? When it passes the dates of when you're able to use it, or do you not really keep track of that?
I don't really, the system can keep track of it, so I'll show you in a minute. You can actually say, okay, like as of January 1st, this discount code will no longer work, and it'll actually just not allow it anymore.
Okay.
I don't know why we have a disable button there. I mean, I guess if you just decided it wasn't working and you didn't want to use it anymore, or you didn't like how it was working, like if it just wasn't what your association was looking for, you could always just get rid of it. I can't really think of another.
Well, I can think of like 5 different things to disable.
Can you?
Discount code. Yeah, it gets out to people that aren't supposed to have a discount code.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I've had that before where we send a discount code just for new members or something, and other people get it and they start using the discount code. So you disable it and then you create a new discount code, but you don't want to keep the other people from getting the discount that they had before. So you just need to disable.
Okay.
So, and it's quick. So anyway.
It's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good examples. All right. So that's everything under form settings. So if you remember, element properties have to do with what we're changing for a specific element or section of the field, a section of the form. Form settings has to do with everything in the form. We're changing everything within the form when we change things under form settings. So now we're ready to add form elements. That means we're actually going to build our form. So go ahead and click Add Form Elements. Now, I am going to start backwards.
Okay.
The first thing I want to talk about is presentation. So go ahead and click on that presentation tab.
Okay.
Presentation items literally have to do with how the form presents itself. These are just things that how the form is going to look. Now, when we created this donation form, it was not an event registration form. It was not a membership application. It was a general form. So a general form is not automatically brought in by the system. We actually have to manually bring that in. So the body of the form will always go right after the login section. So I want you to scroll just below the login section on the right-hand side for me.
Where do I click? Sorry.
Don't click anywhere, just hover over the right-hand column and just scroll right below the login section.
Right here, or the actual, right here?
Login, in the form.
Okay.
And just scroll down just below. So if you scroll while hovering over, it should start scrolling down. Yep.
There we are, yeah.
Right there is perfect.
Okay.
Now I want you to, and notice there is a membership section already in there, but it's grayed out because we didn't tell the system we were making a membership application. If we did, that would be enabled for us, but we didn't. We're not using it. So it's automatically turned off. Okay. You'll see that in every form that you make, but it'll be grayed out if you didn't choose that it was for a membership application.
Okay.
Now, since we're making a general form and we need the general section, I want you to grab and drag the general section.
Drag it here?
And you'll see, yep, see how it turned green to show you exactly where it needs to go?
And just drop it? No.
You got it.
Where did it go?
Try it one more time.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Great, yeah.
All right, so going back to what we talked about earlier, remember how I said the tab of each section is what your member will see as they navigate through the form?
Yes.
We don't want them to go through the login section and then see general section, because they're like, what the heck is a general section? So I want you to click on the properties tab for the general section. And you want to change that name to something that would make sense for them to see when making a donation.
Okay, what would I put?
Maybe just like donation, or provide donation amount below.
Okay.
All right. Now, oh, perfect. All right, so now we're ready to ask this, go back to add form elements. So you'll just click on that second tab up at the top.
Yeah, and then, do you see it?
Perfect. So we're going to come back to these presentation pieces in just a minute. I want you to go ahead and click on built-ins. So we talked yesterday about different types of attributes that we have in the system. So we said that we have built-in attributes and custom attributes. On the form, as long as the login section is on, anytime you add a built-in or a custom attribute, the system will take whatever information is filled in those fields and store it in the member's profile. It'll also do the vice versa. It'll populate any fields that have already been collected.
Okay. And these are the ones
So,
the ones that are built-in, these are always the same, right?
Exactly. And then if you click on custom attributes, you can continue to build these out. We built a couple, I think, yesterday together. Or maybe these are already in here, I think. So built-ins and custom attributes will always grab the information and store it in the individual's profile, or auto-populate it from the individual's profile so they don't have to fill something out again that they've already provided to you. So on a donation form, usually from what I've seen, we ask for a first name, last name, and then for an email address. And then we'll ask for the donation amount. Jeff, did you have any other fields you wanted to collect?
For donation?
No. Well, when it comes to donation, whether this is in memorial or an honorarium.
It depends on who's donating.
It depends on who's donating. So I guess
so we would.
Does that make sense? Or you guys know? I'm sorry, I had to step out and I stepped back in. So, but
no, you're fine.
Yeah.
We're just talking about what fields you want to include on the form, not just custom attributes, but just overall. I said typically it would be a name, an email, and then the donation amount. Is there anything else you'd want to ask?
Yeah, definitely. Are they doing this donation as a memorial to someone, or as an honorarium, or as in honor of someone? Does that make sense?
Yes, so that would be another field that we could add. Yeah, that makes sense. Is that the only other thing that you'd want to ask?
Yeah, is this donation in memory of or in honor of someone?
If they say yes, would you want them to put the name?
Yes.
Sweet. We can add field logic to do that, and that'll be a good practice. Okay. So we're going to first begin by bringing in their name. So do you see the name field?
Do I just drag it?
And then you'll drag it into the general section. So I know there's two green areas above and below, but you want to put it inside of the section.
There we go.
And then just drop it. And I would make this, so notice now we're looking at element properties, meaning what are we doing to this field? I would make it required.
Okay. And why are the 3 on the bottom frozen?
Because I think because scroll down a little bit.
Just a little bit, okay.
By default, I think they're already all on because we turned them on in the attributes. So we can't turn them off. By default, they're on.
Okay, okay.
Do you remember when we turned those on in the attribute area yesterday? That's fine. That's fine. So then the next thing we would want to do is add the email address. Where do you think you would do that at?
Just drag it just the same way from. Is that okay?
But do you want to put it in the general section?
Yeah.
Right below the name.
Yeah, right there. And then this is enabled. So you can't make this required? Oh, required. Is that what I do? Under main?
Yep. Yep. You figured out. So it's just a little different.
Okay. And then export name. What is this? Oh, that's what it's called on the bottom right here on the. So whatever I type in here, it's gonna populate down there, right?
Actually, so the difference between the label and the export name, and I'm kind of letting you get your feel for it. So that's why I'm kind of letting you look around. This is good. So the export name, you have the ability to export form submissions into an Excel file. The export name is the column header of that Excel file. So it's actually always on the form going to pull from the label name, which is just above the toggle that you see there.
Yeah, right here.
So that's what's pulling in. It always has to have some type of label like main. We can change the main to something else, but there always has to be a specific label because if you remember when we talked about how you can collect up to 5 physical addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers on your members. So we have to have some type of specified label for each one, even if you only have one, because if you wanted to add a second one, you've got to know how to differentiate between the different types that you might collect.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, you can make that required. So go back to add form elements. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have another question?
I was just looking at the other options under the main. Okay. Sorry, continue.
No, you're good. Did you have any questions on them, or does that make sense?
No. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. All right, so I want you to go back to add form elements.
Okay.
And so I think, do you get the gist how you can add built-in attributes and it's going to communicate with the member's profile? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And custom attributes works the same way. So if you went to custom attributes, it's going to do the same thing. Now, if you remember if you decided like CRUD, are you still there?
I am.
Okay. I was like, I lost her again. So if you, I lost my train of thought. Okay. If you decided, CRUD, I really needed to add, I really want to ask, maybe on the membership application for somebody's birth date. You wouldn't, and if you wanted to collect that in their profile, you would want to go back to where the attributes are held under the database tab, attributes, and in the custom attributes, create it there, and then it'll pop up here to be available for you to add to a form.
Yeah, I remember.
Awesome. Perfect. So, you still there? Oh no. Hey, you must have gotten knocked off. I'll hang out. You're fine.
Hello, Adrian?
Hey. I'm sorry this is being so awful.
No, it just keeps dropping it. I don't know why that's happening. We'll figure it out. Sorry about that.
You're totally fine. No, you're good. You're totally fine. Okay, so yeah, so you said you remembered where you would add in custom attributes, so perfect. So that's how it would relate. So if you made changes in that attribute area, they would be reflected in this area, in the built-in or custom attributes.
Okay.
Okay, so I mentioned built-in attributes and custom attributes. These are how this is going to be what communicates with your members' profiles. Now, there will be questions you need to ask that you don't want saved in your members' profiles. So an example would be, how much do you want to donate? You don't need to know 5 years from now that Bob donated $100 as a custom attribute in his profile. Now, the invoice itself will still be held in Bob's profile, and the form submission will still be housed in Bob's profile, but you don't need to know it as a custom attribute. So to add fields to your form that you need people to fill out, but that you don't need saved in their profile, we're going to use the third tab, Form Fields.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and click on that. Now, these are all general, and we looked at these briefly yesterday. Basically, you can make these fields do whatever you want them to do. We even have some, you know what? You got knocked offline again.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, let me get in there.
I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Technology has a mind of its own sometimes.
Has this happened with anybody else?
I haven't had this with anybody else today. But it could be GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting could be being wonky. It's not knocking me off. It hasn't been knocked me off at all.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems.
We're not experiencing anything on our end.
Yeah. Can you send? I'm sorry. Can you share?
Yep. Here it comes.
Yeah. Waiting. Okay. All right. Do you see it?
Perfect. So yeah, so you're going to go to Form Fields. Perfect. So what I want you to do, I'm going to let you kind of have fun with this for a second. Go ahead and drag in each of these form fields. Start at the top and work your way down. I'll give you brief explanations of each one, and I want you to come up with an example of how you think you would want to use it.
Okay. So start with, and then
just drag it in, and we'll delete them out, but we'll just drag them in.
Okay. Country.
So instead of it being country, so this is going to be a drop down of all the countries. So you could say, can you think of an example? This is a tough one. I've never really been able to think of you guys have a lot of countries. So it could be a lot of people from different countries. A common one that I use, is kind of silly, but you could say, what country do you want our 2018 conference to be held in? I mean, that's a really silly question. It's like, we wish that your conference could be held in another country if it's not. But do you see what I mean? Coming up with an example of how a drop down of those countries could be helpful, and then you can make it required and all that kind of stuff.
So this is kind of a questionnaire in a way, like you can make it into.
You can make it into any question that each field could be helpful in questioning and in asking.
Oh, okay, I get it. So for this one specifically, the drop-down choices are going to be countries, and you can formulate a question around that.
Exactly.
Okay. So, Jeff,
So,
do you ask people the country they're from ever? Like, is that a thing where you ask? I mean, for example, like this is a donation. I don't know if you would ask that donation.
On a donation form?
Yeah, no, right?
No.
not on the donation form, you wouldn't.
Yeah, this is just
Yeah.
This is a different
Sometimes, like if it was a survey or something like that, I could see like, what country are you from? If we're collecting information on where the information is coming from.
So on a registration form, something you would ask people.
Oh, yeah, most definitely, because
Yeah.
we'll have people registered from all over the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially for the Rothwayans one.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I see. Okay, I think I'm getting it.
So, okay, so it wouldn't be useful on a donation form, so you're exactly right. But it could be something you'd want to ask in another form. Just remember, it's not going to be stored in their profile. So if you want to know what country are you from, or what country did you grow up in, or something like that, that's something you might want to keep in their profile as a custom attribute, because knowing that about them could be beneficial to keep in their profile. So that might be something you'd want to create a custom attribute for, not use just a form field. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Cool. So let's go back to add form fields, and let's add in the next form field.
Okay, and then here, I'm sorry, I'm just going to go through the little toggles. Required is the first part. Yeah. And then enable this element, multiple selection. Oh, so someone can
choose more than one country.
Yeah. So you can say, I want it in. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. And then set default values. What exactly is that?
So that means that by default there's something selected. So like if for you guys it wouldn't fit, for most of my clients the default could be the United States. So when they opened it, United States is already checked. If they wanted to change it, then that's when they would have to go in there and change it. You guys aren't really going to have a default for that type of example, because it sounds like you've got members kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what that does.
Okay. Go back to add form element, and then date.
Yep. So you can, if you want, you can grab and drag it in the general section. And that's just above. So notice it's like, nope, that's the confirmation section. There you go.
Right. There we go.
Date is just going to give you a drop down with a calendar. So what date do you want our conference to be held on? Or I'm trying to think of something that wouldn't be. You could use that for birth date, but you probably wouldn't want to use a form field. You want to use a custom attribute for that to save.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but go ahead and look through. So remember, when you update the label, make sure you update the export name as well, because if you export these form submissions and the column header says date, you have no idea what that column of information is. So make sure if you update the label, you are also copying and pasting it into the export name.
It has to be exactly the same. Okay.
It doesn't have to be the same. They can be totally different. It's just if you update one and not the other, you're not going to know what that column means when you're looking at it in an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then date time field. Enable this element. Okay. And then field logic.
We're going to use field logic in a little bit. A field logic means, so like Jeff mentioned, are you making this donation on behalf of someone? The options would be yes or no. If they choose yes, we are going to create field logic so that another box pops up that says, please list that individual's name below, or we would love to know who you're making the donation on behalf of, and then they can type it in. But they wouldn't see that box if they checked no. So field logic, in this case, what it's referring to is what country do you want our 2018 conference to be in. So if they choose the United States, you could set up so that field logic pops up. Yeah, so you'd say what country. And then for a specific answer, you would say, okay, like a silly example, we want our 2018 conference to be in Italy, and then you can have a field logic box that says, and how do you help us plan on paying for that? So they could put in like their response, but you wouldn't need to ask that if they said like the US or something like that, right? That's a super silly example, but
Yeah.
it's just, does that make sense how it would be used? Okay. Cool. So go back to add form elements. Did you have another question? I'm sorry.
No.
Perfect. Okay. File.
Okay, file, drag that down. Let's do that again. Okay.
This just allows them to upload a file.
Okay. That's pretty self-explanatory. I don't know if there's anything about that. Oh,
Yeah, it's
what
self-explanatory.
about the other settings down at the bottom? Copy, delete.
You could copy or delete. We're going to delete all of these in a minute when we're done.
Okay. Oh, and this is to upload an image. Okay.
Yep. So this, I had an association who used this. They had a conference and they had their members all design the banners and like marketing campaign, and then they did like a competition to see who would win. So it was like upload your banner entry here. So that's just another kind of very specific example, but it would just allow them to upload an image.
Okay. Okay.
And then the next one.
Number?
Okay. So number is a little special. This allows them to type in a number. It has to be only a number, no special characters or spaces or dashes or anything. So I don't know a great example for this, but I want you to notice there's a new toggle and it's price field.
Right there.
Go ahead and toggle on price field. Now, this first case, so the example I usually give is how many tickets do you need for our upcoming conference? Now, each ticket, see the price per unit wouldn't be $1. It would maybe be $75 or $125. Uh-oh, it lagged you out.
I'm gonna have to refresh it.
You're fine.
Am I good? Okay. Sorry, continue.
So the price per unit, you would want to update the price per unit. So maybe each ticket's $75 or $50 or $25. Yeah.
$25.
And now you'll notice down at the bottom in that field, it says times 25. So you would want to make that label say how many tickets do you need for the upcoming conference. And if I type in 5, it's going to do 5 times 25, and it'll apply that to the invoice. It'll create an invoice for us.
Okay, let's just go with that. All right, I see it. That's neat.
And then the next thing that I want to mention is there is a number input, which you're using now, but do you see the currency input? So it's right below where you put the price per unit. There's another, what we would call a radio button. Click on that currency input.
All right.
This is what we're going to use for the donation. How much would you like to donate? So you'll change that label name.
All right. There we go. Is that right?
Perfect. Yep. So now the last thing, anytime you use a field that collects money, there's this additional button that says Edit Payment Processor and Revenue Account. Do you see that in the middle of the left-hand column? Click on that. you'll always want to make sure that you're putting the invoice line item. So the invoice line item will need to read not number or donate, but donation total.
So, okay.
And then, yep, so this would be how it would read on the invoice. And then you would choose a revenue account. I owe you guys, because I'm the worst ever, I have to put in your revenue accounts. But I know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I will promise, pinky promise to put those in, but I owe you guys putting in your revenue accounts. And once those have been added, you'll be able to select the revenue account for this as to where the money, what bucket the money is going into.
Okay, so can we just do none right now?
Yeah, that's fine. You can come back and edit it. And then you'll save.
Internal, right?
It is internal, exactly.
Is that fine, just to leave it blank?
Yes, I typically do leave it blank.
Okay. There we go.
All right. Okay, so we're going to go back to add form elements. Now the next one is selection set. We're going to use this one as well. So in this case, we're going to say what Jeff mentioned, which is this donation for, he worded it in a nice way.
Yeah, he did. He said, did you say, is this donation
in memory of or in honor of someone? Or, yeah, it's kind of a yes/no question.
Yeah, is this donation of?
If so, who?
Oh.
Yes, that would probably be the right way to put it.
And you want them to type out the name? Right?
What's that?
You want the name to be?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll add that in just a moment. The first thing you need to do is actually add the options they can choose from, which would be yes or no. So you're going to add selections and option limits.
So you said,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
make sure
about the export name, should I,
always copy and
right?
paste the label name and the export
Right.
name.
Got it. There we go. And then required?
Yes.
Okay. Do we do price field? No.
You could. Why don't you go ahead and turn that on so you can see what it'll look like.
Okay. Add selections, options, edit payment processor. Okay. So is this where you would add the yes?
This is where you can add the yes or no.
Yeah.
So you're going to add both.
Okay, so
Yep.
like, all right. Hello?
Yep, so then you would add no. And then you can add in the amount, but there's no price for this. But if there was, you would add it in those price field areas. Do you see those?
Yes, right here.
And then the limit means that, now this is a bad example, but let's say that you guys were having a conference and you said, are you coming to our conference? And the answer, they could choose yes. Maybe you only had 200 seats at the conference. So that limit, you could limit to 200.
Got it. Okay.
So sometimes people, it'll be, will you be attending the conference? Will you be attending the conference virtually? I see that a lot these days. And you can limit how many people can actually come to the conference. The way this is, you can just hit save. It's fine.
Okay.
And then we're going to turn off the price toggle. I just wanted you to see what it would look like if there was a price toggle on.
I'm going to turn that off right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay.
Now, if they check yes, go back to add form elements, form fields, and I want you to add a text box.
Right
It's
there?
the last one.
Yeah, right.
Yep, so just grab and drag it underneath what we just added. It's being a little fickle. And then you can just drag it underneath. All right, so in this case, for the label, you're going to say, please list the name and of the person that you're making this donation in honor of, or how Jeff, I'm sure, has a better way to say that.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right there. So we have the question and then
name. Is this actually? We can change it later, but it's a donation in memory of or honor of someone.
In memory
yes.
of or honor.
And if it's if they say yes, then it's please give us their name and an address to contact them if you wish. Yeah, we can update that later.
Yeah. So this is not a. So because
it's a little wonky.
because my question is, I guess the follow-up question would be, because we created a question above, is this donation in memory of, we'll change it, or honor of someone, and we put a little required star, and they said yes, would that wouldn't make them, it wouldn't, the actually writing out their name isn't required, right? I would have to just individually require that one as well, but
exactly.
Not if you wish.
Exactly.
Okay, so, okay.
So now what you can do is, if you click on that, please provide name of contact information and contact information if you wish.
Yeah.
So if you click on that, on the actual, yeah, perfect. Click on that actual field.
Got it.
You might already be in there. And then if you scroll down, you're going to see the field logic. The first thing I want you to do, okay, so the first thing I want you to do, since you said and contact information, do you see right below the enable this element toggle, it says display type?
Yes.
Just above. Yeah, instead of a text box, make this a text area. It will allow them to add more information if they wish to.
Okay, there it is.
And it'll stretch with whatever they add. Okay, go ahead and turn on the field logic. And then add field logic, just like when you were testing it earlier. And say, is this donation? Yep. And if they hit yes, you want that box to pop up, right? So you're just going to hit save.
Yeah. Got it.
Okay. Now, do me a favor, go ahead and delete out any of the fields that we don't need.
Okay. Does that look good to you?
That's perfect. Go ahead and go back to the form fields. Now, the next two, state is just a drop down of all the states. So it's the same as country, but state. And then we use the text box when we said, please provide name and contact information if you wish. So you've used all of the form fields. Any questions on any of those before we keep moving?
No.
Okay. So the next item that we're going to look at are the presentation items. We went there in the very beginning, but I want you to go back there for just a second. So we use these to bring in the general section. If you ever needed to manually bring in an event section, you can do it the same way we brought in the general section. So we already did that. Then we've got horizontal line. A horizontal line is is literally a horizontal line. You can place that anywhere on the form. We're probably not going to use it. We'll probably just delete it.
I just want to, okay, all right, just gonna delete it. Okay, I deleted it.
Awesome. So did you see, and then you've got a label. A label is just what we call a text box. So if you add a label in, you're literally just adding in a place you could put directions, disclaimers, instructions. It's just an open text box. Page breaks will normally be built in. Yeah, you can go ahead and add that in and see.
So this text box is for us, right? So what we want to put in it, this is not something that's filled.
Correct. It'd be if you wanted. So do you see on the left-hand side, edit label text?
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then
Page break, just page break.
exactly. Do you know what a page break is?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then white space is literally just white space. These are all pretty easy.
All right. Okay, and then height. All right. Okay.
And that's it.
Wow.
I know this is a long one. Do you want to see what this looks like on the front end?
Yeah, I would love to.
So go ahead and open up an incognito window. You're going to use those three dots in the top right-hand corner of your window stacked on top of each other.
Oh, right here. There it is. Right? There it is. New incognito.
Yep.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yep. New incognito window. Perfect.
Okay. And then what do I type in?
You would type in, remember it's the first part of the web address, which is road.membercooks.net.
Sorry, I'm writing this down too. Okay, next part.
/ and the alias. I want you to try to go find that alias yourself.
Okay. I remember it was discount.
But where do you find that at?
Right here under form settings.
So it was donation. Yep. Yep.
Donation, right? Yeah. Okay.
So you'd put that after the /.
Okay. And then.
And you'd hit enter, and it's going to bring you to a login page.
Oh, is this where I just sign in?
Yeah, but I don't want you to sign in with your credentials. I want you to make up an email. It can be fake. So you want to sign in as a new user. Yeah, and then as long as it's got an @something.com.
This is my private one. Okay.
Okay. And then you'd hit register. It's going to ask you to create a password. It can be as simple as number 1.
Oh, I went all in.
That's okay.
Great.
And then at that point, you're going to, yep.
Oh, there it is.
So go ahead and fill that out. You don't have to put a prefix. You can just put your first name and last name.
What is that?
That will be a suffix. We don't have any right now, but you can just leave that blank as well. Then it's populated your email. How much would you like to donate? You can put in like $10, or it doesn't matter how much you put in, but you can put in something.
Oh.
And then is this donations, hit yes, and then you see the little field logic.
Yeah.
You don't have to put anything in because it's if you wish. You can if you want to.
Let me pretend here. Okay. There it goes.
And then you can hit next. And it's got the discount code because we set that up. And then we didn't actually put in what the discount price would be, so that's not going to do anything, but that's what it would look like if there was a discount.
Okay.
And then you would hit next. So it's a little summary, and then you'd put in your credit card information, and that would be it.
Okay.
And you would just hit submit.
Oh, very nice.
How cool is that? And then at this point, you wouldn't submit it.
Yeah, that's really, really neat.
Awesome.
Looks nice.
Cool. All right. So awesome. So I think that wraps up the forms training. Any other questions on that we can review?
No, I mean, it is definitely robust. I have my notes, and then I know another one besides the donations for Ross Williams that we're gonna have to make the book orders. Is that for Ross Williams?
That's for Ross
That
Williams
is,
form.
yeah. So it'd be like a book order form. Which
I think it's very similar to a donation.
Yeah,
form,
it should
even
be.
a little
It should be.
easier, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want, you could try that form, and then we could maybe get together one day. I don't know what y'all's week looks like, but we could get together one day next week. And
Review it. Would you like me to do it and try to attempt to tackle it on my own? I feel like I would be confident. I mean, I'm not going to guarantee no mistakes, but
That seems reasonable. I think
Yeah.
that would be a good kind of skill,
yeah.
you know.
Do you make a lot of these
exercise.
forms?
What's that?
You make a lot of these forms, right?
I haven't made a lot.
Okay.
I've made couple on my own. So you'll probably have more experience with this than I
On MemberClicks?
on MemberClick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can give you a sample of what our paper form looks like, and then you can kind of figure it out.
Mimic that and see. Okay. Yeah. I think that sounds good. I can try. I do feel good with trying to create the.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can
I'm
always
also-
edit this, correct, Adrian?
Mhm.
Until someone actually fills out.
Until someone fills it out. Okay. So when,
Exactly.
All right.
So right now we're just in testing mode and
Yeah.
everything, so it shouldn't be any issue.
Okay.
So just don't submit it at the end. So like you couldn't obviously because you would have to put your credit card information in. But if there was a time where there wasn't a credit card information, now if there was a time where you weren't collecting credit card information, it would bypass the payment section and just say submit. Just don't hit that until you're 100% ready. That form's ready to go, because at that time you won't be able to make edits.
Okay.
Okay. So I need to I'm going to stop our recording.